Métis women played many important roles within their communities. They gathered and prepared food, they raised children, they were healers and midwives, and they were skilled seamstresses. Métis women's role as seamstress was important both domestically and commercially. Métis women often became seamstresses for their surrounding community in order to supplement the income of the family. As a result, many Métis women in the Qu'Appelle Valley became well respected for their sewing and artistic skills. Along with sewing, making hooked rugs has been a strong artistic tradition for Métis women. Métis women made beautiful hooked rugs that they used within their homes, and they also sold their rugs to other families throughout the valley. The hooked rugs were usually covered with bright, colorful floral designs. The rug designs were distinct in nature. Métis women of the Qu'Appelle Valley referred to these designs as Métis designs, which usually included colorful flower designs surrounded by rounded leaves and tendrils. Recycled clothing was cut into thin strips of material, and with a rug hooking tool, this material was looped through a piece of burlap or jute until all the holes were filled, eventually making a decorative floor covering. There were several skilled artistic women in the Qu'Appelle Valley that were well known for their sewing skills, their embroidery designs, their crocheting skills, and their hooked rugs. Florence Desjardins, Agnes Paulus, and Adeline Pelletier de Racette, all sisters, were three of these artistic women. Florence Desjardins, a well-known Métis seamstress in the Qu'Appelle Valley, sewed commercially, making and mending clothes for families in the valley. She made everyday clothing such as men's overalls, and even made wedding attire for both brides and grooms. She was adept at floral design work on clothing and skilled at making purses from assorted materials. These items were sold through a craft club in the Qu'Appelle Valley and therefore can still be found in many parts of the valley. Agnes Paulus was also a talented seamstress and is especially remembered for her work sewing uniforms for both the RCMP and the Salvation Army. She was well known in many of the Qu'Appelle Valley communities, such as Belcarris, Fort Qu'Appelle, and Abernethy, for her high-quality seamstress work. Adeline Pelletier de Racette was also a skilled seamstress and continues to be highly skilled at making hooked rugs. Adeline was born in 1911 and grew up on the road allowance in the Qu'Appelle Valley. Although her mother passed away at a young age, Adeline was still able to learn the hooked rug craft by closely watching other skilled Métis women in her family. Adeline eventually became well known all over the valley for her beautiful hooked rug designs that she sold to farm families in the area. Adeline continues to be highly skilled at the art of hooking rugs. She has spent a great deal of time making her rugs over the years and is renowned for her beautiful floral designs. The healing nature of the rug making process, accompanied with the beauty of the final artwork, allows this work to be extremely gratifying. Today, Adeline's daughter, Margaret Harrison, is well known both in the Qu'Appelle Valley and in the northern Saskatchewan communities of White Fox and Nipawin for her skilled seamstress work. Marge, who now lives in White Fox, learned to sew, embroider, and make hooked rugs from her mother, Adeline. She fondly remembers the importance of rug hooking as part of the history of Métis women in the valley. Marge credits the women in her family for influencing her decision to sew, embroider, and hook rugs. Marge is now choosing to revive this Métis cultural artwork and begin to teach other young Métis women.
Mother was a great sewer as far as clothing, sewing our own clothes for us. And so I guess I just have that built in me because our aunt, Agnes, who was a seamstress, did the RCMP uniforms and Salvation Army uniforms for people in Indian Head. So her family has been very, sewing oriented. Auntie Florence is another one, her sister, who does fabulous work. She's, passed on now, bless her soul. She's, left us with a lot of good memories and good things. So it was just a few years ago that I thought that maybe I'd like to bring this art back because, well, it's our history, I guess, and, you're always wanting to keep your history going and your culture. I thought, well, that's something that I know, and I just wanted to pass it on to other people. A lot of people would like to try it, I know. My vision is I want to share this with all the ladies and to try and empower you as to you can do something. You can do something with your hands, other than being a career-minded person like our era was get married and, raise your family and stay home. This was, my era. Mother's era was a little different too. But the next generation, which is my daughter's generation, and there is 5 generations in my family and 4 with my daughter, but her generation is more career-minded, and so I suppose the younger ones are going to be the same way, But I have a 10-year-old granddaughter who's interested in brugging, and she's learning how to sew. So I'm hoping that we'll just continue this.
When living in the Qu'Appelle Valley, Marge remembers both her mother and grandparents trading hooked rugs with the farmers in exchange for essential food items such as eggs, butter, and pork. She also distinctly recalls both her mother and grandparents having their separate territory for selling their hooked rugs.
My grandfather was a peddler as well. Qu'Appelle Valley was a peddler of fish, and Grandma she made rugs too, and so Grandpa, Musham, when he'd go to Indian Head or wherever, he would be taking rugs with him, and he would go and peddle these, and they loved him. And he peddled fish. Yeah. And picked Saskatoons like he was a whiz at picking, and cook them too, they both. And so he'd go peddle that. So, that was his territory seemed to be Indian Head way, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And yours was across the valley on, towards Belcaris and Abernathy. So your paths, your rugs never met. They were sort of different, and, but that was the territory that they covered.
Florence Desjardins' son, Bob, who grew up in the valley, recalls the importance of hooked rugs as a source of income for many Métis families.
Years ago, that used to be a sort of source of income for Métis people, a lot of it. Like the white people didn't take them to town, the white people would buy them, for $3-4, and that time $5 would buy enough groceries to last a family of 4 all week, Oh, they made all kinds of different patterns, like they made round rugs, square ones, small ones, big ones. They made all different kind of hook rugs and braided rugs, yeah. The round ones were pretty well all braided rugs, but they also hooked those too. My mother used to be great for that. She used to draw flowers and make these flowers, and then Grandma would come over and they'd dye all this clothes a certain color, and they'd use that to make rugs.
Both Marge and Adeline have become quite skilled at their craft. With their artistic skills, these talented Métis women have gratefully agreed to demonstrate the procedures of how to make a hooked rug. The rug hooking skills will be outlined in the following 6 steps. Number 1. Preparing your rug hooking materials. Number 2. Building a frame. Number 3. Preparing your work surface. Number 4. Cutting and tracing your pattern. Number 5. How to hook your rug. And number 6. Backing and finishing touches. The first step in making a hooked rug is preparing your rug hooking materials. First, you will need 2x2 lumber pieces in order to make a rectangular or square-shaped wood frame. The size of the constructed frame should be slightly greater than the preferred size of rug that you expect to have when you're completed. You will also need nails to attach the regular wooden frame, or you may use bolts and screws to attach the 4 corners of the adjustable wooden frame. In an adjustable bolted frame, the pieces of wood will need to have holes screwed into it every few centimeters so that the frame size can be adjusted. You will then need to buy burlap or jute material to be used as your rug hooking surface. The material can be cut out according to the size of rug that you plan to make. You will also need to obtain corduroy or blue jean material. This material will be used as a reinforcing border to be stitched to the burlap or jute, and will also be used as a backing, cut according to the size of your rug. You will need quilting or upholstery thread, preferably sealed with wax, to stitch the border to the burlap and to stitch the backing to the border of the rug. You will need either rug wool or string in order to lace the bordered burlap to the frame. You will need big-eyed needles of assorted varieties for the lacing process. Marge demonstrates several needles which could help the rug working process. You will be needing a thimble to protect your fingers. You will need small and large straight pins to pin down your pattern. You will also need sharp scissors to cut the t-shirt material into strips and regular scissors to cut the paper pattern. You will need any type of paper, preferably recycled paper, in order to cut out your flower and leaf patterns in your design. You will need a rug hooking tool or hook, which can be found at the upholstery, craft, or corporate stores. You can either buy a new rug hooking tool or can make your own hook out of cork and a nail bound together by tape. You would then need to sharpen the nail into a smooth hook shape. You will need to gather an assortment of colorful cotton t-shirts, preferably pinks, reds, and burgundies for the flower petals, yellow for the flower centers, green for the leaves, and various colors for the background. Darker colors such as blues and purples can be used as a hook border for your rug. You can also have the option to dye any white fabrics into the color that you need for your rug design. As Marge begins to share the steps to rug hooking, she reflects that it takes time to prepare for your rug as you gather all your needed t-shirt colors and select which colors will work well with your design.
I like pink, and I think that's one of our Métis colors. And of course I have a few varieties of green here, but we're going to go with a nice bright green for our leaves. I think will look very nice. And I have a nice, really a bright pink, and what we do is we look at it, you know, and we put it down there and see what it's going to look like. Take a little hunk of that, take a little hunk of this, and we just lay it on, just so that you can have a look at what your colors are going to be. Now, Mother always outlined hers, and I think I like to keep that tradition on because that's hers. So we're going to outline with maybe a nice blue. We also have a center of our flower that we have to look at, and we want to get something in the center that's going to bring that out. So we'll just try a piece of yellow and see what kind of, what does that do. And I think it's, just, the colors together are just kind of vibrant, and I think that'll make a pretty nice looking rug. But it takes time to plan for a rug, and like I say, if you don't always have these nice colors on hand, but you can save up for them. Get your friends to bring them over. There's always somebody that has extra t-shirts, and I can just tell you a story of this fellow came to our house, and I had started hooking, and of course I was working with the pink, so I wasn't too concerned, but I didn't have green, so I thought, well, I'll go to Value Village or something and get a green. But this fellow friend of ours came in the door, and he had a green t-shirt on, and I said, Bob, I need your t-shirt. What? I said, yeah, I need, that's an excellent green. I said, it would do very nice leaves. Well, by Joe, a bag of t-shirts with greens in them. So those are the greens that are on that. That's his t-shirt there. That's his green. So it's really funny how these things happen when the whole community can get involved.
When you have gathered your colors of fabric, the next step in preparing your materials is to begin by cutting the t-shirt seams out of the material. You begin by cutting off the arm sleeve and proceed to cut away the arm seams, followed by the neck seam, the side seams, and bottom seam until all the seams are removed. The material will then be ready to be cut into thumb-width strips.
And of course, as you're cutting, you're thinking of your colors, you're thinking of what design you would like to do. I was taught the basic flower design, and which is, we always said, was a Métis design, so we always just stick with that. Though I'd like to get a little more adventureful sometimes, so I try something new. But we're just cutting these little strips of your material, and the reason I'm saying it has to be a cotton material, because when you pull it shut, then it gives you this nice cord, and this is what you want to pull through your canvas. So we continue to do that until we get all our colors done into strips, and we end up with a color amount like this.
After you have cut your t-shirt materials into long strips, you have the option of rolling the strips of fabric into yarn-type balls so that the material can be easily used and stored. It is recommended that you store your material in baskets or a cardboard-type box as opposed to a plastic container, because the fabric will need to be exposed to the air. The second step in the rug making process is the building of a frame for your rug. There are several types of frames and an assortment of different sizes depending on your preferences.
have to have a form, which is a rug form, and these are just 2x2s, or you can use pretty well any type of material as long as they're you know, firm and you put the ends together. There's two different ways to do that. I'll just point that one over there out. It has a bolt on the end of it. Maybe I'll just get up and show that one, because it's important to see how these can be made. This one has holes in it, and it can be moved with this bolt. This bolt can be unscrewed and moved, and can be moved down. And this is the one that we're going to show today, how to totally do this one. Also, I have small demonstrator ones, which are just a little smaller if you want to start out with a wall hanging, say, or you want to do some placemats, something like that. Or just a practice one. Then that's what I thought I would do today, is try and get a few practice ones done, and of course the big one.
After nailing and bolting together your frame, the third rug hooking step involves preparing your work surface. In this step, you will choose the type of material that you prefer for hooking your rug, either burlap or jute. You will learn how to reinforce the material by sewing on a corduroy border, and we will also be shown how to lace the bordered burlap or jute to the wooden frame.
Once you have that, we have the material now. Here I have what is called burlap. I've already put an edging around it. You cut out your burlap to the size of whatever frame you're going to work with. I'll just work with this here and then I can show you. First of all, the burlap has to be cut. It's not an easy fabric to cut, so what I do is, to make it straight in the back, to try and get a total square, you'll see it frays very easy, so you can pull that cord to make your square, which makes it a little easier to work with. Once you think you have a square, then you will get some material, other material. I'm using corduroy here, just a fine corduroy, corduroy cotton, because it has pretty good strength, easy to work with, and very flexible. So I usually make a border of this just to reinforce the burlap, because it's fraying very easy. So I usually sew it together all the way around, and then I do a top stitch on the top to reinforce it, because this is going to be put on your board and it's going to be stretching very tautly and it's going to have constant pressure. So this is quite important to make sure that you're pulling it right, really give it a good pull. So once you do that, you give it a top stitch of any type of material. That strong blue jean material, if you have, is excellent, because it can be on the floor, it can be washed, and this as well can be. So that's what you want, something that you can wash and throw in the machine, because those rugs you can, because it's all cotton t-shirt stuff, and it's washable. So this is what your rug will look like when you're putting it together after you get it hooked. So you want to have a nice fine line like that on the edge of your rug. You're going to be hooking pretty close to this last stitch. This is another fabric that is excellent for rugging. This is called jute, and it is a finer grain. If you want to just sort of compare the two grains, this is very fine, so it's a little sturdier than than this. The grains are a little wider here, the threads. So this goes for a finer hooking than this. But you can still do very well with this. And also you can use gunny sacks like potato bags as well. And I think they used to use those years ago for their rugs. Because of course I know that they didn't go and buy burlap by the yard. It wasn't heard of, I don't think. But those are the two fabrics that is available in your fabric stores today. Or if you can't get them there, go to your upholstery dealer, and I'm sure he will have some, because they use it at you know, for upholstering. So that is your fabric. So what I'm going to do is lace my material, my burlap, to the frame. And what I do is I try and get a big-headed needle, big eye, and I'm using this kind of wool. I think it's a little easier for the stretch than the string. And we just start by, I try to do my corners first, and I try and get to about the top of this, just the top of that area where you've made a seam. You've made a seam and you've doubled the seam over, so you have an over top stitch here, which is reinforcing. So what I do is I try and get my corners up so that your hands are going to be free. And there is needles, like I say, there is needles you can get at the upholstery shops that do sell wide-eyed needles. But that's your idea, and then you continually go around the whole thing, lacing up your wool. So we'll just continue on here. So now I have this thing tied. I just tie it a little bit here because we can, the thing is you can continuously tighten if you get loose. So you want this fairly, I don't know, a couple inches apart. I don't usually, you know, have to measure, but it doesn't have to be that accurate, as long as you're getting a good pull. And of course you can be nice and tidy and get it all just straight. So my mother also taught me how to sew as well as embroidery, and she was a great embroiderer. Also sewed her own clothes, made our clothes. You know how it was, we went to church every Sunday, of course, and you were always dressed up, and Mother used to always make sure that, well, it's my sister and I, there's 5 of us in the family, 3 boys and my sister and I, so we always got this new outfit that Mother made. And the boys, of course, were always crisp in their white shirts. You had to have a white shirt. Dad would have to have a white shirt. And of course, Sunday was a big day. We lived for Sundays, I guess, actually, when you think of it. That was our big event of the day, of the week. We grew up along the Qu'Appelle Lake, you know, on the road allowance. We had a settlement there of, oh, there was, what, about 6 or 8 families there, lived with us, lived by us. And you get so you talk to your rug as you're going, because you're kind of with it a long time. So, you know, it becomes a nice way of expressing yourself. So we just tie off, and you can be as tidy and as you like with your ends. So that gives you an idea anyhow of what we have to do. And see, that one now comes a bit taut. You can see that it's going to be nice. It has to be tight as a drum, they say. Well, I guess we You know, we were recyclers long before recycling became, you know, a household word, actually, because like these dresses that I was saying that Mother made, they were from, you know, and very rarely did she have new material to make these. And they were plaid, flannelette, you know. They were plaid skirts at Christmas time, red plaid flannelette. That's what she made with white blouses. That was our Christmas dress for midnight mass, of course, because that's what we, you know, we always got dressed up for midnight mass. And we would go in the wagon, and, you know, the bells would be ringing, and Uncle Rahul would be coming from the top of the hill, and you could hear his bells coming, you know, in the night, because you're going to midnight mass, and it's at night, and oh, it was so exciting. As little kids, we'd be tucked underneath all these heavy blankets and these cow skins they used to have, you know, they may be robes, and we'd be tucked underneath there. Some would be running along, and it was just fantastic. So there we have the threading of, you know, it could be a lot tidier. It's to your own your own taste. This could be, you know, nice and tidy underneath. All the knots could be under so you don't see them. And that's actually the start of your rug.
The fourth step in hooking your rug is the preparation of your design patterns. We will learn how to fold, cut, and trace the patterns, which include the flowers, the leaves, the veins, and the vines.
But first we will cut out our pattern, and like I say, we're going to go to the size of our frame here today. So I'm just going to cut this out, and never use your fabric scissors. Just a little tip, not to use your fabric scissors for paper, if you possibly can, because you're just going to dull your scissors. So I'm just going to use this right now, and first of all, take your paper, fold it in half, okay, then fold again, and then fold again. You round it off like that. So you have a little cone shape, and if it doesn't look good, you just trim it up a little so that you have a little cone-shaped thing that looks like that. And then you unfold, and behold, you have your flower. We'll put that right in the center of this one and make this our focal point. So I'm just going to try this bit of charcoal here and just see how Mother contended with this charcoal. And it works beautifully, actually. And you can see how you just sort of trace around it. And of course you have to get your little, and of course you would pin this down. I forgot that. And so there, voila, you have your, and then she would go in to make her circle, and in, and there you have your flower. Our next one will be some leaves. So you just take the paper and cut it in half the same way again, and you just make a nice leaf. And it's just a form like that, which is, you know, just a plain form. So there you have a leaf, which is wherever you want to put it, and usually they would, you know, come in so that the leaf is protruding from the flower. So let's say we have two over here, or one over here, we'll have another one coming out over here, and maybe another one beside it, so you have sort of even out your picture as you're looking at it. So that's what she would do, take her charcoal again, and she would maybe make a half. This is the end of it. I've made a point so that we'll try this and see if we can do it again. And it's working very nice. So you would have a leaf coming out like that, and then you would have another one right beside it. And this just gives you a rough idea of how you can place your leaves. And then of course you're going to make your veins. Still continue with your veins in there. So when you start hooking, you don't want to make things too crowded, too small, because your stitch, your loop of your material has to, it has to show, so you don't want to crowd everything too close. So we'll just maybe do another one over here, just to balance it out, so that when you look at this, you're going to, we'll put him in just a bit. Let this one stick out a little farther. And it just comes over, this one even comes over, so you don't want that, you want that, you're not going to look at that, okay? Now, the way Mother does hers as well, and then you have to put a vein in there, of course, some little veins. Okay, now to add to your rug for just a variety, she would, if she had, like she has there, she has 3 roses together, so she would have some little vines coming out, which is circles. So you would look at that and say, okay, well maybe we'll have to do a few this way, just to circle it, just to give it a look. And that way there we'll just come, because when you're outlining it, then you're going to, and I think that looks all right there. I think that's enough. I don't think you want any more on that little piece. So these can be of various sizes, whatever, you can put 3 on, you can do whatever you like. It's up to your own, but that's your basic color. And as you can see, this gets kind of mussy if you're using charcoal, so you can use a felt marker, which is modern day style.
Before tracing your design on the large frame, you will want to measure the width and the length of your rug hooking surface. This will allow you to measure out a suggested 3-inch wide hooked border, and will also allow you to place your flower patterns at approximately an equal distance from each other. After you have finished measuring and have traced your design onto the jute or burlap, you can now study your traced design and decide if you would like to make changes.
We could start in the center and work over, but I like to start on the end and work down. So just to make sure that I have enough room, I'm going to do a couple of marks here, and just to give myself room to see that I'm right over the edge on this one, and I could come down a bit. So we want to have enough room for some leaves, so we don't want to crowd ourselves. So we'll move down a little, and we just trace around this. Usually I don't trace, I just it's fairly simple. You can pin it down if you like to, to have it smoother, and then you draw your circle and your other circle, and then you come in, and this gives you your heart shaped. Okay, so I want to stay within that line, and if it's not right on, it doesn't matter either, because we're not perfect, so we don't, that's our style. It's just a nice, easy, it's our colors that make it and gives it that uniqueness, so we don't need to. And then we do our circle again. I usually do a double circle, a lot of people don't.
The fifth step in the rug hooking process is the actual how-to of hooking your rug. This step demonstrates the process of hooking your cut strips of fabric onto the work surface. We will learn how to support the frame while rug hooking, how to use the rug hooking tool, where to begin hooking, and useful strategies in learning how to hook with ease.
So first of all then, if we're going to use our blue as an outline, and I think this strip is a little big. As you can see that, how wide that is, and it just feels very bulky to me, so I have to change and find. And that's the fun of it. I think we we kind of can search through our pile and find one that feels good to you. That feels not too bad, I think. So I just pull it so that it's just a little cord. It turns inside out, as you can see, from that straight, and it always goes to the, don't get alarmed if when you pull it and you say, oh, that's not the right, color, but it goes inside out when they're pulled, because that's the way the cotton curls. It curls inward. You can see, like when I pull it, it just does, it'll not. And this is actually the right side of your material, and that's the wrong side. And when you pull it, it automatically seems to go, two. So these things were just made for hooking rugs. I mean, I think so. So now she chooses where she's going to start. And it's a push in, and Mother always keeps her ends up. You try and get as close to the first loop, to each loop. See, Mother's used to working with a bigger frame, but that's the looping motion that you use. It's down, pull up, and go down and pull up. You'll notice that her other hand is underneath there, so maybe we can lift it up and you can see where she's holding right to the end of her material, and maybe you can go ahead and try one, Mother, and just pull it down. They can see how your hand is going to be pulling up, and it pulls up like that. Okay, so that gives you this effect now. So you just continue then, and you just go around your total, and you try and get close so that you're making your outline. But I can see that this is small and she's used to a big. I think I'll just put this here to give you a bit of bracing. There. So when you hold it in your hand, you try and keep this up so that you'll pull it up smoother. It'll bubble up instead of...
Okay. Boy, there is an art to this. Oh, I see.
Let go.
And then let release.
Yeah. So it's pull up, let go.
Okay, pull up, let go. And you have to, yeah, you have to really
have to get really close. See how there's two threads there, or two pieces?
Oh yeah.
You want to try and get to the next.
Oh, I see. Yes.
See, you can do this as you go along.
Keep it folded in.
Yeah,
Oh.
Keep it folded. It's easier to pull.
Yes. And you get a nicer. It comes out looped better, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So down, pull, up, release. And that tension, There's a tension
that you're keeping on the fabric underneath as she's lifting, and sometimes it snaps off your hook, because these are boughten hooks too, and they don't have enough hook on them.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted these new ones made with the hooks. So I think there is an act to it, and you have to hold it so that you're working with your thumb, like
your thumb and your
not straight up and down.
No.
And that's how it goes in.
Yeah.
But yet there's just.
She
She's on a slant with her.
Yes, I see that.
And that's the ball fits in your,
right.
it's in the palm of your hand.
Yeah.
So you're closer to the bottom of the hook.
Oh, yeah.
While working, Métis women often sang songs, visited, and shared stories. Today, Marge and Adeline shared their memories of living in the valley.
But in the valley, the wood was very scarce and was small. So therefore, it was twigs, you know, like what we'd say twigs today. But she would go and gather all of this. They'd take the wagon down there and load it up. Our father couldn't do it, so, you know, and Mushroom, he would have if he could, but he was getting old too, you know, so he couldn't do it. His mother was the one that went out and got the wood. If took Dad along with her, he wanted to go, and he, you know, didn't want to go by himself either, or she wouldn't let him go in the winter because he'd lose his mitt and then his hand would freeze, you know, and or his foot would get cold because he couldn't feel it.
Paralyzed inside.
So it was kind of tough getting wood. And now when we come up here to this country and we see wood, you know, we're just marveled. We'd like to go there and pick wood, you know, like, and get a wood pile sky high just to look at it. Because those are the things you miss, you know. We had this little truck that came from Fort Qu'Appelle, I think. And he would come maybe once a month or something like that in the summer. And we'd look forward to that because we'd be getting fresh fruit. Well, fresh we thought, but really wasn't fresh. I mean, I'm still hooked on ripe bananas to this day because of that. But we would save our bottles, and he had this cute little red van, like it was a little truck, and he'd pull up by the highway. We had a highway beside. Well, we were road allowance people, so we lived right by the highway. We didn't have far to go, but we lived in kind of a pie-shaped road going to the dam or to the lake, and then the highway, which was gravel, of course. But all our relatives lived around, you know, up the hill and whatever. But this fruit man, we would have our bottles ready, you know, and everybody be coming. Everybody comes down to the fruit man, to the fruit truck, and that was really a special time too. But and then there's the gren thing that, you know, the choke cherries, picking choke cherries, grinding. Mother had her big rock, sat down and crunch, and juice dripping, and all these little things piled up all over outside. We'd have to be fanning them steadily to keep things off of them, so they'd dry in the sun, you know, and then they would be put in those bags similar to these bags, you know. And Mother used to have one full of grens, one full of Saskatoons, dried Saskatoons, and they were put on a hook. And oh, I can remember sticking my hand and grabbing you know, a handful of dried Saskatoons, and they were so good.
Once you've finished the outline, you can fill in your design with the colors of your preference, and then complete hooking your background and border. Once you have finished hooking all the burlap or jute holes in your rug, you can begin the final step, which is the backing and the finishing touches.
Now that you have finished your design and you've finished hooking and you're feeling pretty happy about yourself because you've accomplished so much, and now we're going to go on with the finishing touches. So turn your rug over, and the outline that, set these needles over here, this little outline that I had suggested you put on your rug to begin with, this little extra flap, now you can just be ready to tuck it under. You need a piece of material the size of your rug, and it can be of any kind of fabric. Old blue jeans is really good, denim of any kind, corduroy is what we're using here today. But just something that's going to give you a little bit of wear when you're washing your rug, because it definitely is washable. So the next step would be to get your material, measure out what your length of what you need, and lay that down right flat to your rug, and pin it in all areas of the main part. Like I've got these pinned here, you can see that. And get it pinned down so that this part is, you know, really stuck to your rug. Because this is an individual piece here that we're working on. So I think I'll just turn this around so that I can show you a little clearer. So what we're going to do then is we're going to roll it. We're going to start to fold this under. And sometimes you might have to cut this off if it's a little too long because it gets kind of bulky here. But we'll give it a try. So you just fold that over, pull it in so that you're right taut with your, and you can buy these large pins. You can see they're quite large compared to a regular pin. That's a little bent one, but you can see how large they are. They're very good for this. And they're in the pin department in any of the fabric places. So we're going to just tuck that all under like that. And the corners are a little tricky sometimes because it's a little bulky, but you just sort of work with it a bit and you'll find it blends in. And this is even a hat pin, so whatever you have on hand is good. So I'm going to try and tuck that under so that we get a smooth corner, and we'll work with that. So there we have that end, and you can see how that's going all the way around. We've tucked it all in. Yeah, so we've got this side already sewed down, and you can see how pins are out of it and how smooth that you have all of this area just right taut all the way along so that you're showing your rug right at the tip, and it's the same here. So when you flip it over, you're not even, you know, you're not seeing your finishing underneath. But that's why that little tab is really important, I find, with finish, because you can put anything here. It doesn't matter as long as you have this little tab to tuck under, and it just finishes you right off. So good luck in your rugging, and I hope you enjoy what you've designed for yourself, and I think it's a good accomplishment. I just say good luck to you.
After you have finished your rug, you can be proud of the artistic work that you've created. Some artists use this creativity to begin planning for their next design. In this light, Marge shares with us a rug that she has recently designed, which promotes Métis leader Louis Riel's quote, stating, "My people will sleep for 100 years. When they awake again, it will be artists that give them back their spirit." Marge also shares her vision for the future of rug cooking and Métis women artisans.
This one here, and I wrestled with this. I drew up several things of, you know, different things that I thought might be, and I thought, how can I do a sash on, because that's one of our, you know, main ones, and I wanted to feature it. So I drew a few of them up, and I got some inspiration, and I didn't want it to be like here. I didn't want it to just continue on straight like the sash is, you know, every thread is just straight. I didn't want that because I thought we're going to have a lot of straight lines when this is put together with the background. So I wanted something different. So that's where the little corner came, and I call it a corner because we're always turning a corner. And we can go either way, and these ones go this way and these ones go that way, but we always come to the center in order for us to start out. You know, we're going this way and this way, and I think it's just like our people. We're both, you know, we're going every direction, but we're still in our homeland. And Louis Riel said that we'd be sleeping for 100 years, and so I was always thinking of that we're awakening now, I believe, and with our art and with all these you know, people that are doing different things with art and crafting, and expression is what it is. It's a beautiful expression of how we feel. So that's where I came with awakening people, because I just wanted to say that to them, you know, they are awakening. But the vision I see of our women is to just gather to begin with, visit, you know, talk to one another, just be together, and that way you just present this closeness and this feeling of belonging to a society or a nation. I mean, this is our nation that we're trying to build, and I think women are going to be a very, very big part of that. And with the sewing area, I think that we need to present it to them in a way that they're going to enjoy it, not make it a you know, a big ordeal, because then it doesn't become fun again, you know, anymore. It becomes a job, and we want it to be a fun thing. We want it to be an enjoyable thing. It's like the quilting bees, I guess, that, you know, that are out there. Let's have a rug bee, you know, and get together. But the healing power from it is amazing. You just, your hands are busy, your mind is thinking of just that one focus, and everything is gone from your mind, and you're just busy thinking of, you know, hooking and looking at the color, enjoying your, you know, each little, like my mother says, each one of those little holes have to be filled. And don't get overwhelmed when you look at the size of, you know, of a quilt, of your framing, and think, oh, I'll never, you know, I'll never do that. But really, you will do it, because once you get started, it's just a blessing. And it would be nice to have this go across the province, like, you know, across Canada. I mean, you got to look big, you know, think big as far as the craft goes, because I think every province would have a special way of interpreting too, you know. Would be nice for us to see across the country, you know, what we can do as women. And you know, it's just empowering for us to say that, you know, we designed it and we put it up there for people to see. So I just like to thank everybody for, you know, for inviting us to come and show our craft. It's one that Mother's passed down to us, and she did so many of them, working until 2 o'clock in the morning over lamp light. I mean, you can imagine how dim that was and how she could see, but she must have had eyes like a hawk, is what we always say, you know, because she did such fabulous work for all her neighbors, and was recognized by it, you know, in the neighborhood, in the valley, in Qu'Appelle Valley. So it's a memory that she will carry, that she did it, and today for her to be able to come back and do it again and to pass it on to other people, I think is, you know, it's really going to be great for, it's made her feel really good, because she talks about it being excellent opportunity to share her gifts that she's had. So I thank you again.